Howdy, I'm Chris McDonough, and I just want to show you some of the features briefly of the new AgriSolve product, which we've been developing with Mallee Sustainable Farming as a tool to help farmers particularly get into VRT, but also to help them manage their VRT on their own farms better. So what you would do is you go in and register with AgriSolve from the MSF website. Once you get into it, you would click on this Satellite Explorer and it will take you to where you can then zoom in onto your farm. I'm just using an existing farm here, but first of all, just helping with the mapping, you would go to draw a zone. So just, for instance, if you're getting started, let's call this a paddock here. And once you map that out, you would name the paddock. And as you can see, and then what we would do, we would go into the edit mode for that. And you'd be thinking, okay, well, I can clearly see that that there's some sand in there. So what you would do, I'll just get myself out the road here. You would draw it in a zone. You would click on, say that is that's a sand hill. And then the good thing is that this this product actually brings in all the soils from back in the soils that were mapped and soil pits done and analysed back in the 90s and 2000s. So it brings you all the local soils that are associated with that farm area so that you can start to choose through some of those as to what you might use to represent each of your zones. So for instance, the farmer might say, well, this is the main soil paddock zone. So yeah, that's what's mainly in the paddock and that's what it looks like. But we've got this new zone, which we've just done, which is a sand. So we would drag that over, put that in there, and that automatically comes in as a part of that paddock now. And then what you can do is if you've got another part of sand hill in that particular paddock, you can click on that and that automatically brings that in as its own zone. Okay, so I've just gone back to the original paddocks that I've mapped there, and as you can see, we've got heavier soil here. We've mapped in there. We've got a stony zone there, and the sand, and you can see each of them have got a different bucket size, which is really important when we start to pull it into some of the management tools for plant available water and nitrogen requirements and things like that. But in terms of just mapping these, there's a really good tool on here where you can bring in an overlay of NDVI images going back to about 2017. And if you can flick through different dates, you can start to see, choose a date that normally I would say at the end of the season, in sort of September, October period when there's no cloud. And you can actually get a picture that represents pretty well what you think the changes in the soil zones are. Then that can really help you. And as you can see, we've actually used that to help map this paddock here, and you can actually just edit some of those lines you might have drawn or use them to draw the lines, and that's quite a good tool to then be able to use to help with your mapping program. And it's just NDVI is an indication of better growth and worse growth at a particular time. So once we've done that, the other good feature is that this program automatically brings in the historic rainfall for the last 40 years for that particular farm based on Google rainfall technology. And so that helps us to then drive all the information about rainfall deciles for that farm. And the other good thing is it actually brings in all the rainfall that is happening, that's happened over the summer, and that automatically gets brought into some of the workings of the tool. And for instance, at this site, we've seen a November rainfall to January, and then the February, March rainfall. And then we use that in combination with our understanding of the different bucket sizes and shapes. For instance, this one's got a very shallow bucket, as to how much of that water, that rainfall that's fallen over summer, might actually be available at the start of the season on April 1. And then that can be a really important driver of this next feature, which is a bit of a nitrogen calculator. But what it does is it looks at the rainfall, the different zones. And so, for instance, with this one, because we might have, so we've set this up just as an example with the best soil might have had 39 millimeters of stored moisture, whereas your shallow stone might only have 2 millimeters going into a particular season. And your heavy flat might have 15, depending on how much rainfall's fallen, and the deep sand 12. So then that can be a real important driver of the yield potentials for each of those zones, and then that can help lead into the nitrogen requirements to hit those potentials. And this is where you might be starting. It would pull in the rainfall that's happened from April 1st to your seeding time, and then readjust all of those deciles into the information so this is like average would be decile 5 and 6, whereas we're down decile 1 and 2 for these could happen if you'd have a poor finish versus the risk and the opportunity of having a better season. Here's your yield predictions and your nitrogen requirements to hit those. The nitrogen requirements are based on you putting on in the information about the rotation, what you're going to grow this year, your target protein that you're aiming for, and what you had last season. So if you had canola, or if you had a really good pea crop, then that's going to change how much nitrogen for that zone you put in the yield that was in those various zones, roughly, as a bit of an indicator. And the other thing too, it already draws in the organic carbon of the soil that you've chosen, but it also, you can actually vary how long you've been into stubble retention or a no-till system. That would then, the longer you've been, we believe that you get a lot more mineralization impacts from that, particularly in you have those seasons which have higher rainfall. So there's that adjustment that can be made there as well. And so therefore, as you look through that information and the different soil types, you end up with different yield potentials for different seasonal outcomes, and also different nitrogen requirements. So that's quite a useful tool. And as you go through the season, if you are getting to the post-nitrogen stage, then it will feed in the rainfall that's happened at your farm automatically, and therefore come up with new yield potentials and new indications of nitrogen that might be required to hit those targets. So while there is a bit of readjustments that we are working through in terms of some of this as we've built this machine, it certainly, I believe, gives a good indicator with robust figures that will allow you to say, yes, there's more opportunity, there's more safety, or there's more risk in putting more of my inputs into this zone versus that zone. And so then again, it can just really help with your decision making for variable rate farming. So I guess that's just a quick thing that where it's at the moment. We're also looking to be able to build in, so you can put in your strips of high strips and low strips across the zones, so that then when you get your yield results from that, you can overlay that and it could automatically then give you some really good assessment as to what soils were responsive in that particular year, and so that then that can help you make better decisions as to the how much you put into those zones in future years. So I hope you can see that it's quite a useful tool. It's quite unique in the way it brings the soil information automatically in, and that can be a driver that actually saves you from having to do a separate soil test in every zone of every paddock to work out plant available moisture and nitrogen. This is a tool that automatically gives you a fairly good indication of that if you work through these processes. So hopefully that's been useful, and we look forward to where this is all going to take us into the future. Thank you very much.